Okay, today we are going to be starting some of the halachas of Sukkah. In particular, we're going to be starting from the end of the halachas of Sukkah, which deal with some small simanim on different topics. So today, what we're going to be focusing on is the bracha of Shehechiyanu and the Sukkah. Just by means of a very brief introduction, as we know that we say Shehechiyanu on every single holiday that comes, every single yontif. Women do it when they light candles. We do it during kiddush. Men do it during kiddush. The question is, would there be an additional shechiyanu over here on Sukkos? Because Sukkah is different than other holidays. Because we are actually building something. We're making something. That being said, maybe we need to recite a shechiyanu on the actual building of the Sukkah. When we complete the building of it. The tour opens up over here. And he starts his Siman by saying, let's say someone's making a sukkah for himself. Siman Tafresh Mem Aleph. Let's say someone's making a sukkah for himself. Ein sarach levarach alas yasa. You don't need to make a beracha on the construction. Question is, why not? You're making a sukkah for yourself. You don't need to say, there's no shechiyanu, there's no special beracha. Afagav de garsinon Yerushalmi is a sukkah la'atzma mevarach asher kiddushanu b'mitzvos v'oisav v'tzivanu la'asoi sukkah. Even though it says in the Yerushalmi, right? We know we have the Gemara that most people learn, the Talmud Bavli written in Bavli, and then we have the Talmud Yerushalmi, which less people learn, written in Yerushalayim, Israel. So it says in the Yerushalmi, if you make a sukkah for yourself, you need to make the bracha. Shir kiddushanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu la'asoi sukkah. You say, blessed are you, Hashem, bracha Hashem Kedem Cholam, Master of the world, God of the world, that you commanded us with your mitzvahs and commanded us to build a sukkah. So according to the Yerushalmi, you make a bracha when you build a sukkah. However, also l'chaveru mevarach al asiyah sukkah. Right? Even if you make it for your friend, you have to make a bracha. Just the text is different. According to the Yerushalmi, if you're making a sukkah for yourself, lasoi sukkah. Whereas if you're making a sukkah for your friend, you say the bracha alasiyas sukkah. Maybe the text is different according to Yerushalmi, but guess what, says the Torah? Don't worry about all that. Samchinon agamara didon. We rely on our Gemara, on the Bavli. Dika Amar, and our Gemara says, she'ein sarech levarech alas yasa. You don't need to make a bracha on the construction of the sukkah, which implies you could if you want. We'll come back to that. You could if you want business. So we don't make a bracha. Aval shechiyanu. Oh, so the Torah really is talking about two brachas. That was talking about a general bracha for the actual building, the physical construction of the sukkah. That we don't do. What about shechiyanu though? After all, it's something that is new. Aval shechiyanu hayaroi levarach. Yes, shechiyanu would be fitting to recite the bracha of shechiyanu. Titania, because we have a brayso. The brayso says if you make a sukkah for yourself, then you say the bracha of shechiyanu. So really, we should say shechiyanu. Nichnas liyeshev ba mevarich baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu v'tzivanu leishev b'sukkah. You go, you enter to sit in the sukkah. So you make this bracha, baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu v'tzivanu leishev b'sukkah. Bless you, Hashem, our God, King of the world, that you commanded us with your mitzvahs. You commanded us to sit in the sukkah. So really, we should make a shechiyanu. Granted, we don't make the bracha on building the sukkah, but why don't we say a shechiyanu? Ela de misadrinon le akasa. Rather, what we do is we do it on the cup. Right, we make kiddush on Sukkos night. And in kiddush, we say shechiyanu. The shechiyanu that we recite when we say kiddush exempts this potential shechiyanu that we needed to recite on the completion of the construction of the sukkah. So that's why we don't say a shechiyanu over here on when we build the sukkah. And the reason is because when we do it on the coast, when we make kiddush, that covers us over here. So this is what happened to Shehechiyanu. The obvious question is, why don't we recite a beracha when we build the sukkah? That is the obvious question. The Torah over here is telling us we hold at the end of the day like the Bavli, who says that we do not recite a bracha. The question is why not? Number one. Number two, why shouldn't we recite two shechiyanus? We see something fundamental from this halacha. Really, we should be reciting a shechiyanu over here on the construction of the sukkah and the building, but we rely on the shechiyanu that we need to say anyways because we have a new holiday that came, we have a new yontif. Question is why? Why do we combine the two together? Why don't we say no? You should make the independent shechiyanu over there. And why don't we say the bracha on the building of the sukkah? After all, it's a mitzvah, as we learned. Siman Tov Reish Chafei, and if Siman Tov Reish Chavdal, we spend time on it. You go from mitzvah to mitzvah. Right after Yom Kippur, you build the sukkah because you jump from mitzvah to mitzvah.
Even Eretz Yisrael holds by the Bavli when there's machlokes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Comes along the Beis Yosef over here, and he says, "Wait a second." He actually quotes this Yerushalmi in the beginning. Then he quotes a Bavli in Menachos. The Gemara Menachos Mem Beis quotes Rav Chisda. Amr Rav Chisda called mitzvah shasiyasa al yedei goy ein Yisrael mevalach al asiyasa. Rav Chisda says a rule: any mitzvah that could be performed by someone who isn't Jewish, we don't recite a bracha on that. Now, an example of this would be the construction of the sukkah. Right? They can build someone who isn't Jewish, and then at the end we just put a little schachan or something, you know. V'ikaman de Amar kol mitzvah she'ein asiyasa gamar mitzvah so ein tzarich levarach. There's an opinion over there in the Gemara who holds that any mitzvah which the performance of that mitzvah isn't the completion of the mitzvah, you don't need to recite a bracha on that. For example, building the sukkah. The completion of the sukkah is really sitting in the sukkah, therefore you don't need to say a bracha. So these are really two reasons why we wouldn't say a general bracha for the mitzvah. For the building of the sukkah. A general bracha for the building. Why then don't we recite a shechiyanu? So that's actually the next Beis Yosef. The Gemara, and actually over there in Suka and Mem Vav, says that Rav Ashi chazino Rav Kahana de Masader Lahu Akasa de Kiddusha. Rav Ashi was one of the individuals who wrote the Talmud Bavli, the Gemara, Ravina and Rav Ashi. The Gemara says that he saw Rav Kahana, that he just inserted the shechiyanu when in kiddush. But why don't we say the bracha? Comes along the Mordechai, one of the most underrated Rishonim. I actually say that this was Rav Chaim Kanievsky's favorite Rishon. The Mordechai writes over there in Suka, in Siman Tov Shin Samech Tes, V'ha'idno loy mevarchinan shechiyanu al asiya Suka, Kemosha also b'meya chachamim hatanoim v'amoraim. Nowadays, we don't say a shechiyanu on building a sukkah. Guess what? In the time of the Mishnah, in the time of the Gemara, the Tanaim and the Rama, they did recite a shechiyanu. So the obvious question is, what changed? Cars? That's what changed. Planes?
And then cars back in the day of the Beis Yosef.
Planes?
Yeah.
That's what changed. Yeah, they didn't have that in the day of the Beis Yosef. Yeah. What changed? Guns? Right. They didn't use bow and arrow anymore. What changed? Yerushalmi, The Mordechai answer, this isn't even the Beis Yosef, this is the Mordechai.
Mm.
1,000 years ago. Yishloimer lafisha kol echad haya oise la'atzmo. Lafika chayim avarch. Back then, everyone used to make their own sukkah.
Very funny.
Okay, see you later. When you would make your own sukkah, so what happened? You have a tremendous simcha. You're very happy about that you successfully made your own sukkah. And when you're happy about it, that's when you're going to say the shechiyanu. Nowadays, especially nowadays, this is talking about 1,000 years ago, when the Mordechai wrote this. This is nowadays you have one person, he builds 100 sukkahs. He's building a lot of other people's sukkahs. It doesn't seem that just one person should be making the bracha and the others shouldn't. Which means we have a difference over here if you're going to be constructing your own sukkah or not. If you're making your own sukkah, you make a bracha. If not, you don't. Okay? Consequently, when it developed and it was more common that one person would build multiple sukkahs, guess what? He would only make the bracha of shechiyanu on his sukkah, not other people's sukkahs. Comes out, some people will be making bracha, some wouldn't. That doesn't make sense. It's going to be confusing.
But it mean that meaning that one sukkah was used by 100 people?
No, that's not what it means.
No, because I know
Nope.
my grandfather in Europe said that they used to have, and he didn't, the lower reason they have to share something.
We're going to talk about sharing sukkahs. We're going to talk about that as we continue. However,
So we didn't have a means.
that's not. This is what. That's something else. That's not what this is. That's not what the Mordechai is saying. The Mordechai is saying, "Aval ata she'echad oise lemeya." In Sarach Shivarach. Now, one person osa means builds. He's doing for 100 people. Doesn't make sense. But it'll be the same logic. Aval ata she'echad oise lemeya. If you have one sukkah that's being made for 100 people, doesn't make sense that maybe it could read that way. Maybe it could. I take that back. But now that you have one person who's making a sukkah for 100 other people and they're sharing a sukkah, doesn't make sense. It's just one person makes it, the bracha and everyone else doesn't. Which that also is interesting. It could be a question because if he could everyone can listen. Fulfill the obligation with that. But anyways, that's what the Mordechai says. Rav Kahana Mesader Lohu Akosa the kiddush of Madam. And we rely on Rav Kahana said that he did it on kiddush. He said the shechiyanu on kiddush, and that's what the custom is. Comes along the Beis Yosef. He continues by quoting a Taisus. And a Rosh and Aran the mashma bebrayso she'im yevorech shechiyanu b'shas hasiyo ein mevarkish nechutei. Wow. These Gedoli Rishonim say it's implied from the Brisa. These great Rishonim say, if you recited the bracha of Shehechiyanu when you made the sukkah, technically you wouldn't need to say the bracha when you enter into the sukkah of Shehechiyanu. They say you wouldn't need to. You covered, you already said it. Which is a fascinating ruling because where's your Shehechiyanu for the actual holiday? We're saying it worked beforehand? Pretty big, lenient surprise there. The Tomu Alze, they wonder about this. Tahal Sorach Levarach Mishum Yom Tov. Kederach Shemavarach Bashar Yom Tov, exactly what I just said. The obvious question is that on this, wait a second. You need to say the bracha of Shehechiyanu because of the actual Yom Tov. We have a new holiday over here, just like you do on every holiday. How then are you going to get out of that? You can't say that the Shehechiyanu that you recited before Yom Tov even started would count for the Shehechiyanu that you need to say on Yom Tov itself. How could that be? The Beis Yosef answers, Ve'efshar. It's possible to say the kevan de Suka, machmas chag ka'asya, zman di do, afal pi sheberach b'chol potel zman de chag. Possible to say that since the Sukkah itself, it's only coming because of the yontif, right? We're building it because of the yontif. You could be covered. It's shechiyanu could cover even something on the yontif itself, even though you recited the shechiyanu before it was yontif during the week. Yeah, this is a wild ruling and explanation. Very insightful over here. That what? Because you're building the sukkah for the holiday itself, even if it's not sukkahs yet, you're still covered. Tremendous, tremendous lenient insight. The Kosav Haran b'Shem Harayvid. Shemi shaloi ochel b'sukkah laila harishoin afal pi shebeirach zman bebeso yisorech lamachor kisheyeshi b'sukkah lavorach zman yim lo yiberchu b'shas asio kisheim shemavorchen alulav zman afal pi shekvar beirach oisoy belayla. The Ran writes in the name of the Ravid. Let's say someone didn't eat in the sukkah on the first night. So guess what? Yeah, it was raining, whatever the reason was. Medical reason, whatever it was. So guess what? He didn't eat there the first night in the actual sukkah, but he still ate. So the halacha is you have to say shechiyanu in your house for the actual holiday, for the yontif. The next day when you go to the sukkah, you have to say now another shechiyanu.
And you do it a little bit closer, right?
Wait, let's do one thing at a time.
Okay, yeah.
You need to make a shechiyanu if you didn't say the shechiyanu when you construct in the sukkah, which we don't.
Right.
So you didn't say it at night. You didn't say it as the halacha is and as we do when you construct the sukkah. So the shechiyanu that he said in his house won't cover the shechiyanu for the sukkah. There's an idea of reciting shechiyanu specifically when you're physically in the sukkah. Guess what? On the first day of Sukkos, when we take the lulav, the hadassim, the ravos, the esrog, when we take over the dalaminim, do we say no shechiyanu?
Hadassim, yeah.
Yeah, the dalaminim, we say no one.
You said before how?
But we just said one last night. Oh, this is special for the dalaminim. So just like we say that we have a special one for the dalaminim, so too a special one for sukkah. It just happens to be that we're, just to use an expression, killed two birds with one stone, so to say. Right? The shechiyanu that we say on Yontif night covers the potential shechiyanu that we need to say in the sukkah. And then we're good. That's only if we're in the actual sukkah. But if we're not in the sukkah, then it wouldn't work. The question now becomes, according to this Ravid, let's say you have the minhag of the Arizal, which is legit, Mishnah Berurah quotes it, and you say the bracha on your daled minim in the sukkah before you go to shul. It's a big Indian for many, many reasons to shake the lulav before you go to shul and everything in the sukkah. So you're reciting a shechiyanu over there. So then you wouldn't need to say another one the next day. Right? It would cover you. Again, in this case, you didn't eat in the sukkah on the first night. Right? You said shechiyanu in your house.
Yeah.
You didn't say the shechiyanu when you built the sukkah either. Now we say you need to say new shechiyanu when you go to your sukkah for the first time. You shake your delamin in there, you could cover it. Just like we say you could cover the shechiyanu for the sukkah and kiddush, so too you could probably cover it with the delamin and rabba. Interesting, right? The truth of the matter is that a lot of the Torah and reasons to shake the dalaminim in the sukkah is because there's a connection between the two. Did you have a question or comment, David?
Aren't you losing a shechiyanu?
No. In fact, you would only be adding an additional shechiyanu. You're never supposed to say 3 shechiyanus. It's always supposed to be 2.
But this
When I went through
shechiyanu.
this, what?
Okay, fine, all right.
Okay. When I went through this yesterday, I thought that this was kind of contradictory. This is what I wrote. Since the Shehechiyanu wasn't because of the Sukkah. In other words, I was bothered by a inconsistency between these two halachas over here. In this halacha over here, there's a little bit of lumdus, so hang on for this. But I think it's important. In this halacha over here, we're saying the shechiyanu that you said in your house won't count for the actual sukkah. You need to say a new one, right? That's what we're seeing from the second halacha. Yeah.
That first night of Sukkos.
Yeah, first night. If you didn't do it in the sukkah, and you ate in your house, you need to make a new shechiyanu the next day. In other words, the shechiyanu that you made in your house wouldn't cover you. You physically have to be in the sukkah. Question: why then do we say in the previous halacha right over here that if you said the bracha of shechiyanu when you built the sukkah, you don't need to make a new one? Later on Yontif, we say that the bracha that you made even during the week could cover you on Yontif. For sure, you didn't fulfill your obligation of sukkah then. So what's the difference between the two? That's the question that I was really bothered with. I thought that this was just an obvious inconsistency and contradiction. So this is what I came out with. Shall I let the question sink? You got the question? The bracha that you said before covers you before sukkah started. When you built it, if you said a bracha, when you constructed the sukkah and the shechiyanu.
So maybe once
Whereas
Sukkah
now it doesn't.
starts, separate chiyuv falls on you.
Seems like this is what I came out with. The shechiyanu in the second case that you said in your house, that had nothing to do with sukkah. That had to do with the holiday. However, in the previous situation, when you were constructing the sukkah, so it looks like I had some typos over here. This thing's freezing up now. Great. That's not good. However, unlike in the other case, in the situation before, when you said shechiyanu when you were building the sukkah, you don't need to make a shechiyanu when you're actually sitting in the sukkah because you already made the bracha of shechiyanu was on the actual sukkah. It revolved around sukkah. It was always about sukkah. Great, this whole thing froze. Bye-bye. So that I think is already a potential answer over there. I think that requires a little bit more research though. Anyways, that's basically what I came out with. I think it's logical. I don't know. I think there's what to talk about with this. Okay, so this is the Torah and Shulchan Aruch.
No Bach.
No, the Bach is he doesn't say anything over here.
Okay.
There's no Bach in the Siman at all. It's on the next Siman.
Wow.
So it's a very short Siman, and I wanted to do a lot of these short Siman because we'll get understandings. We'll get of areas. We'll learn it really well. We'll be experts in the areas that we'll learn, and then we'll feel less intimidating. Oh, next year, only 15 Simanim left in Hilchos Sukkah. That's it. We would have done 5 this year. Maybe we could do because they're short ones. It's good, and then you see, okay, I'm already not so far. You know? Obviously, what we're learning about has absolutely nothing to do with the physical construction of the sukkah. We're just learning about the technicalities of the halachas of shechiyanu. What's going on over here? Okay, so we have the Shulchan Aruch over here. Shulchan Aruch begins by saying, "Ha'oisa sukkah bein la'atzmoi bein la'achar ina mavarach ala siyasa." If you're making a sukkah, whether for yourself or for other people, you don't recite a bracha on the construction. That's the general bracha of sukkah as we discussed. Aval shechiyanu hayaroi levarach kishaoiso iso la'atzma. Shehechiyanu is really fitting to say if you're making the sukkah for yourself. Elasha'anu soimchin alzman. It's just that we rely on the shechiyanu shanu oimnim alakois shel kiddush. We just rely on the shechiyanu that we say on the during kiddush, as we learned. And if you didn't eat in the sukkah on the first night, even though you're going to recite a shechiyanu in your house when you eat, the next day when you're going to recite, or night later that night, if you're going to eat in the sukkah, you need to say shechiyanu. In Beirach's man b'shas sogi lay. If you made the shechiyanu when you built the sukkah, it's okay because that has to do with the actual bracha of sukkah, as opposed to when you just did the shechiyanu in the house. That doesn't have to do with the sukkah itself. Therefore, you need a new one. That's the understanding I had of this. Comes along the Magen Avram. Let's see Taz first. It says the Menachos Mem Beis. Kol mitzvah shabiyasa higamer mitzvah kigoyin mila. Any mitzvah which is the completion of the mitzvah, for example, mila circumcision, afal gav shekeshedi imasa akum. Even though it would work if someone who isn't Jewish did it. Filu hachi imasa Yisrael sarach lavar lachas yasa. Yes, even so, if a Jew did it, you need to make a bracha. That's if it's a completion of a mitzvah. For mitzvah she'enas yasa gamar mitzvah kigoyin tefillin. But a mitzvah that performing that mitzvah isn't the completion of the mitzvah. For example, the making of tefillin. If you made tefillin, afalgav the apostle ba'akum b'Yisrael ein sarach levarach. Even though it would be invalid if someone who wasn't Jewish made the tefillin, nevertheless the Jew would not say bracha because it's not the completion of a mitzvah. Imkain, and if that's so, kol shekein b'sukkah she'in asiyaso gamer mitzvah. It certainly applies by a sukkah that when you build it, it's not the completion of the mitzvah shari sarach leishaba because you still need to sit in the sukkah. Because al yideakum, and it's kosher, would be good if someone who wasn't Jewish built the sukkah. Vaday ein tzarich lavarach haYisrael imhu asa sukkah. For sure, you wouldn't need to make the bracha if you made the sukkah. That's the Taz. The Magen Avram comes along and says, if you're building a sukkah, really it's fitting that the owner of the house should say shechiyanu. It's fitting. This is specifically referring to something that you do annually. But shofar and Megillah, that you don't make a new shofar and a new Megillah every single year. You buy it once, it lasts 10, 20, 30 years, however long it lasts for. Therefore, you wouldn't say shechiyanu if you would make a shofar, if you would make a new Megillah. You would still say a bracha on the actual mitzvah when you perform it, but not shechiyanu when you made the physical object or item that's going to be used for a mitzvah. That's the difference between the two. In Yerushalmi in midkor mitzvah, similarly a menorah. It's unrecognizable. You're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. Maybe you're doing it as a nice candelabra situation.
Yeah, in the first Magen Avraham,
Yeah,
he says so he's talking about the building of the sukkah still.
That's
You
right.
make it, that the balabayas makes a shechiyanu or somebody else builds it.
that's right.
We didn't see that anywhere.
We didn't. He cross references from Hilchos Rosh Hashanah over here.
It seemed pretty clear from the Gemara that wasn't and in Yerushalmi.
I agree.
Case.
I agree.
Okay.
Kuf Kuf Pei Aleph. It's interesting. This is who is this? Levushei Srad. Where's the Machasis Shekel over here? Still Machasis Shekel. Yeah, the Pri Megadim. Where's the Machasis Shekel? It's on the next page. There is none. It's really unfortunate that it's not in this PDF deck. Maybe he would explain what's going on in that Siman. Okay. Let's learn an interesting Daglam Mervava. We're going to see this quoted later on. That's why I came to this over here. There's a Bach that argues on this Rama. And the Daglam Mervava seems to be going that way. Let's see that Bach in the beracha. A lot of people quote this Bach. It's very interesting that the Bach decided not to put it on his commentary to the Torah, but rather he hid it a little bit in his Shilas and Chuvas. The beracha quotes the Bach in his Shilas and Chuvas in Kuf Lamed Beis, who says, if on the first night rain came, and you really couldn't eat in the sukkah at all, you made kiddush, and in your house, hamotzi in your house, according to the Bach, you don't say shechiyanu the next day, and you go to the sukkah to sit. Because it's already suffik bracha l'badala. Could be that you fulfill your obligation with the shechiyanu in the house. Could very well be. And then the Bach writes in his Shilas and Chuvas, Deloy Rama, not like the Rama that we just learned over here, who obviously said, like we just saw in the Beis Yosef, that you wouldn't be covered with the shechiyanu that you said in the house. But the sukkah if you go in the next day.
Mashma from the others that there were two separate
Yep.
shechiyanus. He's saying it's one.
That's right. That's right. Then he quotes the Sefer Masas Moshe or Chaim Siman Hey, who rejects that. He says you do need to say a bracha, just like the Rama. So this is the Bach coming to argue. Bach is quoted on the Shema. And this is something very interesting to discuss. I think we have time for one more idea. The Lavosh offers some insight over here. Lavosh over here is trying to provide a reason why. Lavosh is coming to provide a reason over here why we could just save the shechiyanu and just say it by when we do kiddush over here. How does that work over there? Why don't we say the shechiyanu when we make the Sukkos? The reason makdim the mitzvahs, you want to be quick to do a mitzvah, you can say the bracha of shechiyanu. Yerushalmi says Lavosh, we're only obligated to make the bracha of shechiyanu when we make our own sukkah, as we learned before. Nowadays, the custom is person makes a sukkah for many other people. It's not logical to say how could you say a shechiyanu on something that you're not even benefiting from? You're not going to even be sitting in that sukkah. See, this shows like my chat that I was saying more, right? It's pretty clear. And if you make a sukkah for other people, you don't have the same level of simcha, of happiness when you make it. If for yourself, you'll be happy. So therefore, everyone would technically be obligated to make their own bracha when they would enter in. But not everyone's experts with that. People wouldn't realize that. Custom is that we just rely on kiddush, easy, even if you do it for yourself. That's Lavush just speaking it out a little bit more, going into the logic with the Shehechiyanu business over here. So basically, summarize what we did today in 30 seconds. We don't say Shehechiyanu when we build the sukkah. Why not? That's what we discussed. If you did do the Shehechiyanu, technically that would fulfill your obligation of the Shehechiyanu that you would need to say. And about the first night of the raining business. So we'll come back to this more. We'll learn it more. We'll tackle the Mishnah rules. We'll go through it. Short sim. It's not going to take us more than a day or two.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone should have a wonderful
All
day.
right, shkoyach.
Thank you.